Hello and welcome in. Today we're going to go over how to use Power Automate. So let's get started. Hopefully, by the end of this lesson, you'll have this type of reaction. So I'm going to create a brand new flow. Let's call it my first flow. And what we have to do is choose how to trigger this flow. So we can do a manual trigger, Power Apps, button, and so on. Let's just do the first option here, manually trigger a flow. We're gonna hit create, go to new step. Okay, so what I wanna do is, let's go to SharePoint. So what I wanna do is I want to export a SharePoint list. Let's say that I want to export the SharePoint list called employee. I wanna export it as a CSV file or as a CSV table, and I want the attachment to be in my email and Outlook. So let's go back to our flow. So I'm going to go to the get items action for SharePoint. I'm gonna select it. It's asking for the site address. So go to the drop down. There's a site address. Now yours is going to be different, obviously. And the SharePoint list name is called employee. Make it bigger so you can see. So you got the site address and we've got the list name. All right. So now we can go to this advanced options. If we wanted to filter down on some specific records, we can use this filter query to do so, but we'll just leave what we have for right now. Let's go to new step, and we are going to create a CSV table. So I'm going to say create CSV table. I'm going to choose the create CSV table data operations. All right, so it's saying from. So I'm going to click in here. And what we want is we want to get the items from our SharePoint list. So I'm going to choose value. All right. Makes sense, right? And when we go to this show advanced options, we could choose either automatic or custom. Now, automatic is going to give us all the SharePoint columns in our list, even the ones we don't want, like last modified, all and those things. So what I normally do is I choose custom. That way I can export the data that I'll need. So the header is I'm going to say, let's go back to SharePoint. So we got employee name, city, state, position, supervisor. All right. So the first one, I'm going to say employee name. And in the value, I'm going to choose the employee name column in SharePoint. Right. I'm going to say city, do the same thing. City, just match them up. Pretty simple, right? City, state. Oh, state should be here. Position and supervisor. Okay. So now we have our columns. The last step I'm going to do in this flow is send email to send an email. All right. So in the to section, I need to put in my email. Subject, I'm just going to give it a subject. Let's say employee report. In the body, I'm going to say attached is the employee report. Go to show advanced options, and in the attachments name, I'm going to choose output from our CSV table. Oh, actually, it's going to go here. It's going to go in the attachments content output. The attachments name, I'm going to call it, you can call it anything you want, but I'm going to call it employee report.csv. Okay. And so what it's going to do is going to send an email to us with the attachment of the CSV file from the SharePoint list. So I'm gonna hit save. Got no errors. Now we can run our flow. Let's test it. Do automatic tests or manual tests. Continue. Run flow. Done. Now let's go to Outlook. So we see we have our email. We have our CSV file with the name that we specified in our flow, employee report.csv. We can preview it. Whoop. And there's our information from our SharePoint list in a CSV file right there. It's pretty simple, right? Now, what we want to do is let's see if we can filter that list down. So let's look at the items here. So let's say that I want a report of all of the employees that live in Seattle. Okay. So I'm going to modify our flow. Go to edit, go to get items. Remember, if we go to show advanced options, you can choose in the filter query. So we have Seattle is in the city column. So I'm going to say city EQ Seattle. City EQ, which is short for equals Seattle. All right. So let me save the flow, test it, run it. And now we have a report of all of the employees that are in Seattle right there. Pretty amazing, huh? So now let's connect this Power App or Power Automate flow into a Power App. So I'm going to edit this flow. I'm going to change this, manually trigger a flow. Just going to delete that. I'm going to choose Power Apps, and I'm going to choose the Power Apps V2 trigger. Okay. And let me change I'm going to change the report name. I'm going to call it Employees in Seattle. Employees in Seattle report. All right. Hit save. So now let's go to Power Apps. Let's create a blank app, Canvas app. Call it Employee Report. All right. So now we're in the Power App Studio. So to connect our Power Automate flow that we created into Power Apps, you just click on this Power Automate icon here, and it's asking us to create a new flow. Well, we already have a flow. So I'm going to click on the plus sign, and our flow was called my first flow. So there it is right here. I'm select it. All right, so now I have the connection. I'm going to insert a button, say run, change the background of the screen. All right, so I have a run button, right? And in the on select of this run button, what we have to do is say what the name of the flow is in Power Automate. It's called my first run right here, dot run. So right now it has no parameters. So all we have to do is just close the parentheses, just like this. The name of the Power Apps or Power Automate flow, my first run, my first flow dot run. So when we press the button, it should run our Power Automate flow through Power Apps. So we go back to Outlook. There it is. Notice that the file has changed. Oops. I want to let me look at the file. It's interesting. Okay. Well, let's come back to that now. So we saw how we can make a connection from Power Apps to Power Automate. So let's go back to our flow. All right. So what I want to do now is I want to add a parameter. So I'm going to click on Add an Input. I'm going to choose Text. And what I want to do is I'm going to create a combo box or drop down. Here's drop down. This drop down is going to have a list of our cities. So I need to connect to that SharePoint list. Right. So we have our cities that are in our SharePoint list. Just add a label here. They select the city. And the name of this drop down is called drop down one. I'm going to change that and call it city drop down. City drop down right here. All right. So what I want to do is when I select a city from this drop down, I want to be able to run the report, and the report is going to show the employees that are in that city that I chose in this drop down. So let's go back to a flow and Power Automate. So I have an input here. So I need to change in the get items, instead of hard coding the city, I'm going to change this to city. So it's clear here what I'm doing. So our parameter is called city. If I go to dynamic content and choose city, now I have to put that in single quotes, just like we had before. I'll zoom in so you can see it. So I have city equals, and then in single quotes, the parameter, which is also called city. All right. Down here, I could also change this and put the city that gets selected in our Power Apps. So it will say employees in whatever city that we choose in the drop down report. Okay. So I'm going to save the flow. Now I need to go back to Power Apps, and in the parameter, we have a parameter in our flow now. So I'm going to refresh the connection. You'll see we get an error message because we haven't specified what the parameter, where the parameter is. So the parameter is called, maybe it's called city dropdown. So I'm in the run button. I'm going to say city dropdown dot select the text dot value. So you've got the name of the flow, which is called my first flow dot run, and then the name of the parameter, which is our drop down name, city drop down, then dot selected text dot value. All right. So now let's see here. What do I have here? I've got Boston, Phoenix, Seattle, Tampa, Pittsburgh. So if I choose Phoenix and press run, it's going to run that flow, showing me the employees that are in Phoenix. It's just not showing. For some reason. All right, we'll get it. Let's see here. No? it should show the, not sure what's going on with the Outlook attachment, but it should show this employee that's in Phoenix. We know that it works because we did it earlier. I'm not sure why it's not working now. So if I selected Tampa, press run, it says employees in Tampa. Ah, now it works. Amazing. So it shows us the employees that are in Tampa. Now, if I were to add an employee, let's say I want to add a person. This person works in Pittsburgh. Data architect, supervisor, right? So now I have two employees that live in Pittsburgh or that work in Pittsburgh. So I can simply select Pittsburgh, press run, go back to my email, employees in Pittsburgh, preview, and there we have our report of the two employees that are in Pittsburgh. I hope you enjoyed this lesson. If you want to learn more about Power Automate, I suggest you watch this video.